There were 6 offspring from Harry and Esther Skolnick. I was lucky to be one of them. I'm Michael. Note, however, that in the Hunt family, some years ago, I was affectionately anointed with the name Moke, or Uncle Moke. In fact, the hat I'm wearing is an official Uncle Moke Tilly hat. That's yet another story. I'm the youngest brother in the Skolnick family and 5th born. Allow me to spend a few minutes with you about me and the 2nd born, my big sister Marlene. When I arrived in this world, Marlene was already a mature 11-year-old and considered qualified to be my watchdog in training when Mom was busy. Admittedly, I was a bit rambunctious as a young child, and there are a couple here that could probably testify to that. Typically, when Mom put out the call for help, my older siblings were conveniently and understandably nowhere to be found. Enter Marlene. Marlene often became the go-to person for stepping up and taking on the Mikey challenge. I think it's fair to say she had a little soft spot for mischief maker Mikey. Thankfully, somebody did. I really loved that not only would she schlep me around town with her and her friends, but she did it with unbelievable patience and the purest of love. Unfortunately, pronouncing the name Marlene didn't come easily for me as a toddler. The closest I could come up with was Memes. So I grew up simply calling her Memes. To me, Memes was synonymous with fun. Loads and loads of fun. And what a tremendously creative and imaginative being she was. She orchestrated family plays, as Janet mentioned, family game nights, organized family song fests, and always, underlining always, brought laughter, music, and joy to whatever she was doing with her beloved family. Being with Memes was as exciting as it got, and how lucky was I to be blessed with a big sister like this. I truly idolized her. I have a short story to tell. It was one of Marlene's favorite stories about the two of us, and she loved to tell it again and again. Some of you probably have heard it again and again. On this day, in my early childhood years, Mom asked Marlene if she'd take me to the movies. Undoubtedly, Mom deserved an occasional respite, especially from yours truly. Mom didn't drive, Dad was at work, so Memes and I had to take the bus to the theater. I think it was a movie with Gene Autry, my favorite cowboy star back then. Some of you may be old enough to remember Gene strumming, "I'm back in the saddle again." Yeehaw! Music at its best. The movie was terrific. Every bit as great as I hoped it would be. I was stocked with popcorn, candy, and Coca-Cola, and was sure that I was with the greatest big sister ever. After the movie, and while we were leaving the theater, Memes bent over and whispered in my ear, "Mikey, perhaps you should try to go to the bathroom. It'll be a while before the bus gets here and gets us home." Well, I thought about it for a minute. Okay, maybe it was a few seconds. And then in a most definitive manner retorted, "Memes, I really don't have to go. Really." Memes questioned me again. "Are you sure?" Of course I was sure. Why would she question me? As we walked to the bus stop, Memes seemed to be half laughing, half choking as she spoke with me. Call me naive or blame my youth, but I didn't get it when she leaned over me, stretched open the back of my pants, sniffed in, and coughed a bit while trying to simultaneously conceal her laughter. Before I could make sense of this, she suddenly and enthusiastically exclaimed, "Mikey, I think it's game time." Game time? That got my immediate attention. Whenever an opportunity to participate in game time with Memes presented itself, She had me at game. She then calmly proceeded to explain the rules of the game. Mikey, she said, when the bus arrives, I want you to go and sit in the far seat. Then, anticipating my next question, she added, and if the back seat's taken, go to the furthest back seat you can find. I, she said, will sit in and get off the front of the bus. She went on, when you see me pull the cord at our stop, I will go out the front door, but you must get off the rear door of the bus. Okay. It didn't sound like one of her better games, but yeah, I said, I get it, I'm in. After boarding the bus, I did exactly as Memes directed and sped to the far end of the bus. I was jubilant to find the rear seat empty. That alone, I figured, had to be worth some points towards winning this game. Okay, so off we go. On the ride home, I remember seeing a growing number of passengers coughing and choking. Some, covering their noses, chose to move forward towards the front of the bus. How very interesting, I thought. Curiously, it seemed like everyone on the bus was somehow in on the game, and it was turning out to be more fun than I expected. Only magical Memes could have made this great bus game happen. I steadfastly remained in my seat, and I figured I was playing fairly and squarely under Memes' assigned rules, feeling confident that my eligibility for being a winner was growing. As the bus was nearing our stop, Memes stood up and pulled the cord. I proudly strutted out the back door as she directed, feeling assured that I had won the game. But then, uh-oh, I thought, I think I've got a problem. As I patted myself down, my problem was confirmed. Houston, we have confirmed a major problem. With my heart pounding, my pace quickened as traces of this problem became more and more evident. I rigidly tucked my butt cheeks together in an effort to prevent further collateral damage. We dashed home, Memes well ahead of me. Hey, wait up! When we finally got to the front door of our home, Memes said, Mikey, good job. You won the game. Wow, I knew it. Memes added, now I want you to just wait right here for a moment and close your eyes. I smiled at her and of course complied, assuming she was going after some sort of neat prize for my exemplary game performance. But as Memes abruptly raced off, she shouted out as if to summons Mom. Mom, Mikey's home. I peeked down at myself. Oh no, egads! But I held my head high. Hooray, I was the game winner by a landslide. Literally, figuratively, and odoriferously. All this thanks to fantastic Memes. Just for the record, need I add, Mom was not particularly impressed. Another short story. Marlene was a sister extraordinaire even as we visited her at the hospital during her final days. In order to fully appreciate the story, I'll supply you with the following background to set the stage. So here goes. Fact is, I've been a crazy, die-hard Chicago Cub fan almost all my life. This dates back to when I listened to my first Cubs game on an old trusted radio with my father in the 1950s. Television soon were just coming out full swing. And when we got our first black and white television, I watched the Cubs as often as I could. Problem was, we lived in South Bend, Indiana, and the games were televised through WGN 90 miles away in Chicago. Even with an outside antenna, the reception for most games was so snowy that I heard a lot more than I saw. Not easily discouraged, I still often sit glaring at the snowy screen, having some satisfaction in knowing that every now and then a faint silhouette would reveal itself. I would turn on the TV each day, go through my superstitious rituals, and hope that day we would receive good enough exception to actually see something happen, and maybe a face or two of my favorite Cubbies. As I grew up, I lived with a fantasy that one day I might have some type of contact with Ernie Banks, Cubs all-star shortstop, my very favorite sports hero, known as Mr. Cub throughout Cub Nation and baseball fans everywhere. He played in the 1950s and 1960s. As a youngster, I slept with Ernie's baseball card under my pillow nearly every night. But as years passed, I realized that Ernie was getting pretty old, and I knew my chances of fulfilling my fantasy were dwindling. End of background. The setting is now the night of our recent hospital visit with Marlene. As Noreen and I sat down to dinner that night, flashing along the bottom of the television screen was a news bulletin that Ernie Banks had passed away. Tears trickled down my cheeks, and in my mind, I couldn't help but picture Ernie in his glory days, slamming another game-winning home run for the otherwise hapless Cubbies. It was a tough night for me. On the following morning, Noreen and I visited Meems at the hospital again. She was doing poorly, eyes closed, and speaking was a continuing challenge for her. Then Doug suddenly entered the room, holding a slightly weathered baseball, and placed it in the palm of my hand. Turns out that Marlene had been personally given the ball well over 50 years ago, and she had been storing it all these years. As I gazed down at the ball, see if I find my spot here. As I gazed down at the ball, I recognized that it had a clear, handwritten signature with none other than that of Ernie Banks. Not only was Ernie's signature on the ball, but it also included autographs from all the Cub stars of that era. And yes, Richard, it did include Billy Williams. I gently slid my forefinger along Ernie's name. It felt electric. My eyes watered. At that moment, I knew Ernie and I had finally connected. I looked up and into Marlene's face. She could barely open her eyes, but they glistened as she gave me a special for Mikey smile that I will never forget. What a great gift. The ball, of course, but the ball was merely symbolic of the love she shared with me, the most cherished gift of all. I have since placed the special baseball in the trophy case I hold, and it will sit proudly on our mantelpiece at home. Its story will live on. For those of you who know a little about baseball, you know a double play often starts with a ground ball to the shortstop, who flips the ball to the second baseman, who then tosses the ball to the first baseman. Double play, 2 outs. In Ernie's day, Jack Brickhouse, Cub broadcaster, would say, "It's Banks to Baker to Fondy." Inspired by that old narrative, I have had the following inscription engraved on this treasured ball. If I can get it out again. She warned me about this.
Of course you did.
And it reads, "From Ernie to Meems to Monk." Thank you, dear sister, for a lifetime of wonderful memories and for your unyielding, devoted brotherly love. You, Doug, Cindy, and David are sealed deeply in our hearts today.